Mike won. Phil Mickelson. Words being exchanged on the interwebs. I believe the term, some called it vulgar, which I think was probably a little hyperbolic, but more or less, Phil kind of called Mike wanted.
Eggplant emoji.
Eggplant emoji. Sorry, virgin ears. Is he right? Is Phil right?
Probably not. I don't want to live in a world where Phil is right too often.
All right, how you living, everybody? Welcome back. No putts given. Tony Covey, Chris Nickel. Tony is hacking up a lung, but you can still follow him.
Today.
A little diseased. You can still follow him on the interwebs at GolfSpy. I'm at GolfSpy. All that stuff. Tony, you're wearing a municipal T-shirt.
Yeah.
Is there a reason, Tony?
First PGA Tour victory for municipal staffer. What a
one and only.
What a sentence that is already. Municipal staffer Wyndham Clark. How about that?
How about that? We're going to talk. Yeah, good job, Wyndham. We'll talk about that.
Love that.
Talk about that in a little bit. At some point in time, I draw a line between, kind of where companies should leverage, I guess, or take credit for PGA Tour player wins. I think we had a water bottle incident maybe a year ago or so, where it's like, really?
Yeah, it was several years ago. We used to get the press releases, like the winner of the PGA Tour event had, I forget which water. It wasn't Hydro Flask. It was
like
the other
Thermocraft or something.
There you go. And I'm like, come on,
like that.
Really? We're gonna just piggyback our water bottle to a tour victory. And I don't think municipal is claiming responsibility. I don't know that anybody's saying that if Wyndham Clark did not have access to pink camouflage hoodies, he wouldn't have won the Wells Fargo. But
that's not why he shot 20 under on a ridiculously difficult golf course. No, I don't know. But we'll get back to Wyndham here in a minute. Mike won. Phil Mickelson. Words being exchanged on the interwebs. I believe the term, some called it vulgar, which I think was probably a little hyperbolic, but more or less, Phil kind of called Mike Wan a dick. Is he right?
Eggplant emoji.
Eggplant emoji. Sorry, virgin ears. Is he right? Is Phil right?
Probably not. I don't want to live in a world where Phil is right too often. He may not be entirely wrong, but it's not like Mike Wan just got out of bed one morning and was like, let's be an eggplant emoji. Whereas kind of what led to all this, LIV Golf and everything about it seems to get up every morning and say, let's be divisive in every way we possibly can. So is Phil wrong? Not entirely. Is Mike Wan wrong? Should he not have done that? And we can dig into what he did here in a second.
So I was going to say, so that
not entirely. I'm
going to argue the other side of it too, because I think there's a part of it where, if I'm Taylor Gooch, and what we're basically talking about here is Taylor Gooch was exempt into the U.S. Open based on qualifying for Tour Championship last year. There's different exemptions, ways that you can get into tournaments based on that tournament and who it's run by. Whatever organization runs that tournament typically sets its own entrance criteria. Like the Masters is an invitational. They could invite Tony Covey on behalf of municipal brand ambassador or whatever. They could,
yeah. I will, excuse me, I need to run right down to my mailbox and see how that's working out.
But they could, right? Augusta can do whatever it wants.
My
USGA,
tournament, my rules.
Yeah, USGA runs the U.S. Open, PGA of America, obviously PGA, and then you have RNA with the Open or British Open, again, wherever you fall.
The Open Championship.
The Open Championship. And basically what happened is they changed the criteria, they being specifically USGA, saying, hey, not only do you have to be eligible, which is what it was, but also you had to not just qualify for it, but be eligible. And by defecting, if you will, I guess, to LIV, Taylor Gooch no longer made himself eligible to play in that event. Therefore, now they changed the rule to use that language, so he's not exempt into the U.S. Open. And a lot of people that are either pro Taylor Gooch, pro Phil Mickelson, or maybe anti USGA, which I think there's plenty of reasons to, to sharpen the pitchforks and maybe go get some torches lit with the USGA. Don't love how that went down. And again, Phil basically said over and over and over again, it was a dick move. I tend to agree with Phil. I think it was a dick move.
It was a move. And the thing is, if this was an isolated thing, if you could say this is the first time the USGA has ever changed a rule for any reason,
right?
Then you got maybe some grounds to stand on. But the rules change constantly. Qualifications evolve over time. I mean, we not too long ago, had a big discussion about a proposed rule to roll back the golf ball because something happened. An event or a series of events transpired. And so the USGA is changing course, making an adjustment. And
right.
the thing that happened here is a splinter tour spun up, has given the PGA Tour the middle finger every step of the way. And that's not to say the tour in some respects doesn't have it coming from time to time. But as I mentioned earlier, it has been divisive. Every decision LIV has made has started with some sort of divisiveness. And we can run down that list of every single thing every time. We could spend all day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so to go, hey, we're going to do all of these divisive things, and we expect you to not do anything differently as a result, it's unrealistic. And so, did Taylor Gooch unfortunately get punished here? It sure looks like it.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
he's collateral damage.
But he chose to join LIV, right? It's not like there's a draft and the PGA Tour and LIV take turns and you just end up in LIV and it's not your choice. And so it sucks when my actions have unforeseen consequences, like being sort of rerouted out of the US Open. That's too bad. But at some point, accepting that maybe things aren't going to change for the better, accepting that the OWGR has no interest in changing how they do things because a rival league started up and does not do things like any other recognized golf tour on the planet and expects everybody to adjust. That's unrealistic. So I think at some point you have to acknowledge, be aware, accept that if you join up with LIV and you aren't Phil Mickelson and you don't have years on tour to essentially qualify almost for life in all of these tournaments, which he has, hey, that worked out great for Phil. But for the guys coming up, understand that right now, as things stand, if you join LIV, if you participate in a LIV tournament, you are basically acknowledging, you're saying, outside of what Augusta may do, and who knows, they may be more welcoming, but outside of Augusta, you're never going to play in a professional golf major championship. At least not one that are established now. And we talked about this months ago. LIV can say, we'll just create our own major. It doesn't work like that. It takes time.
We'll try.
And so these are the consequences. You join LIV, no major for you.
My last point on this, and we're going to move on to the next topic, is I do find it, or at least I side with Phil in the sense that I don't like the move. I see why they did it. I think he's collateral damage, part of a proxy situation for a larger conversation that's going on. But I find it interesting that a lot of players that went to LIV say, hey, I'm doing it for these reasons, or I need to do what's best for me and my family. It's a business decision, or whatever the case is. But as soon as somebody on the other side says, you know what, then we don't want to associate our tournament with you.
That's our making a business decision.
So why can only LIV players make business decisions that may ruffle some feathers? Right. And
everybody is entitled to make a business decision here.
PXG, Bob Parsons made a business decision not to renew contracts with LIV players. That's his prerogative. You can like it, you can not like it, whatever the case is, but that's a business decision. The USGA can say it however they want to say it, but they might say, hey, we're going to change the goalposts because we want to distance ourselves from certain individuals or whatever. You don't have to like it. You can call it a dick move, which it probably is, but it's still their prerogative. So,
these are how all these decisions are made. Again, whether it's LIV, whether or a rollback, whatever the situation is, they're made based on something is happening. We don't love it. Let's change the rules. And They did the same thing. Proposed the same thing with a rollback as they are here. And the one thing I will say to end this, I don't like the characterization of Gooch as collateral damage. He signed up for LIV. He made a business decision. A guy made a choice, and these are the consequences. Even if he didn't fully know what the consequences are, still.
Signed the waiver, signed up. Yeah. Moving on. Willett Golf. I'm not talking about Danny Willett, which at first when I thought, I was like, no, we're talking about golf shoes, Tony.
Golf shoes, among other things.
Among other things. Shoes. Yeah, golf shoes. Yeah. It's a question we get, though, back and forth. Should I wear spiked or spikeless, this or that, blah, blah, blah. So, quick article put out is, kind of Will It Golf. What's going on there? What is the deal with Will It Golf?
It's kind of a brainchild of our new soft goods guy, Connor Wyndham. And the idea is let's take some things that aren't explicitly designed for golf and see if you can use them for golf. And so in this case, he picked a Nike baseball trainer as an alternative to a spikeless shoe. And the spikeless shoe came out on top, but the trainer held its own. And for me, we're going to do a lot of these. I think this is the second one.
Yeah.
I mentioned in Ask My Golf Spy on Friday, I have this Seattle sombrero rain hat that I've had for 25 years, not designed as a golf rain hat, just a rain hat, really good rain hat. I don't need a golf rain hat.
Yeah.
And so for some of this stuff, especially with a lot of people coming into golf, knowing that golf is an expensive sport, and hey, I probably don't have spikeless golf shoes, but I may have some kind of nubby training shoes. Can I get away with them and not spending more money?
Yeah.
Maybe. First couple rounds of golf I played, I wore Franklin batting gloves because I didn't have a proper golf glove. I went 2 gloves too. I don't give a shit.
Tony 2 gloves.
Yeah.
Tony 2. Well, I think it goes back and forth. It'll be interesting to see Will It Golf. What are things that you guys see out there that you say, hey, I could use that for golf, but maybe I don't. My brother was just the opposite. I should have called it Will It softball or whatever, but he's one of the beneficiaries of, if we get an extra pair of shoes or things that I run through, whatever, we have kind of same size feet. So he would take these shoes that I'd maybe worn for a year or two, spiked, rubber spikes, and use them for beer league softball. Loved them. Way more comfy. He's loved the traction, and he's a big wear golf shoes to play softball guy. The good championship. I want to talk about this for a minute because I think this is a really, really flippin' cool event. Basically, right, what's going on here? The fellows from Good, right, which are now affiliated with
Callaway,
are putting on a championship that started 2 days ago on Monday. Because we're recording this on Monday, I don't know how the first couple of days went, but basically have roughly a 63-player field. They're going to play an 18-hole qualifying round, get that down to a certain number. I think it's 12. And then those 12 players are going to play the next several rounds, I believe it's 3 rounds, for a $100,000 pot. I think the winner gets $50K. And do you know what the entrance fee was, Tony?
It was $0 and no
$0. You had to apply to get into the event. It's in Scottsdale, Arizona, which, like I said, makes sense at the Weston Kierland Golf Club. Do you like this, Tony? Do you like this type of event?
I mean, it's obviously not for me. I would
you don't think they'd pick you?
Yeah, I mean, there's there are several steps in the process at which I would fail along the way before we got anywhere close to this. I don't even know if I could buy my own airline ticket at this point. I wouldn't get that far, but I like it if for no other reason. I think it elevates good, and typically when you see kind of influencers, blogs, forums, whatever, it's when they have events, it's very kind of fun, recreational. Beer fest type stuff, and that's awesome. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, right? There's a reason why we enjoy that stuff. But this is a serious golf tournament for
real
serious
cash.
Golfers with a real purse attached to it. So yeah, I like this quite a bit. I think it's cool.
Here's my favorite. And
not everything cool has to be for me.
Well,
just like most things, 87%.
Here's the thing that I love about it, and I really appreciate that they're kind of going this route. This is what I loved originally about the big break way back when. It was
so good.
Because there was an element
When Golf Channel was good.
When Golf Channel did something, yeah. For whoever wins this event, this could be a pretty big deal. So a lot of these guys, as I just kind of scroll through the names, I don't know a lot of these players. I know some of them.
Where's that? I'm looking. Can you find the field list?
Yeah, I got the field list up right here. George Markham is a guy who's on Corn Ferry, has Monday queued for a couple of PGA Tour events, went to Colorado School of Mines, home of the fighting Marty Jertsons.
Did you say School of Mimes?
School of Mimes.
I'm never not going to do that joke as bad as it
I know. But George is a great kid, lefty, hits the living tar out of the ball. Winning $50,000 could be a huge deal for his career, because you never know, when kind of one of these little fires might kind of start and it gets him into another event, and maybe it started, at this particular event. I think right now there's two names on here that might vie for the best name in the tournament. One of them is Linus Lilladal. I just love the name Linus Lilladal. You got Barry Babbitt. Don't know who he is, but you got Jake Stiano. Interesting story. Jake Stiano was a high school teammate of Wyndham Clark here in Colorado at Valor Christian High School. Yeah. So you just get some of these really kind of cool things that are in there. Gipper Finau, Tony's kin, is in there. And our beloved Scott Fawcett, decade co-founder, founder, whatever you want to call him, guru, data geek, sometimes a relative pain in the ass of people who struggle with math and angles and things like that. But you got, a
lot of people fail in this class, that's for sure.
60 plus players, all these fantastic stories. This is going to be a big deal to somebody who wins this thing in a week or in a couple days. And I just can't wait to see who that is. Good on good for doing it. I think it's awesome.
I'm with you.
End of story. Tech Talk. We got a couple different questions here for you, Tony.
Yeah.
Something came up last week in terms of shaft upcharges. Do I need, when I buy a new piece of equipment, should I pay the upcharge for a premium shaft? Should I not? And that kind of morphed into this question of, why am I seeing different prices for the same shaft through different companies? Tony, make it all make sense to me.
I can't. I absolutely
Please.
Can't. So background here, had we every now and again I'll tweet something out and say, hey, give me your questions for Ask My Golf Spy. And somebody came back to me with the question, which company is the worst for shaft price upgrading for higher swing speed golfers? And I don't know that it's exclusively higher swing speed golfers, but ultimately the question boils down to who charges the highest prices for people who purchase shaft upgrades? That's a really simple way of doing it, looking at it. So,
and what'd you find?
So I did some digging, and I looked at the big 5 companies.
So we're talking Callaway, TaylorMade, Ping, Titleist, Cobra?
Right.
Those 5?
And okay. I looked at both the DTC pricing for the companies who sell directly through their website, which is everybody other than Ping. And then for Ping, I looked at PGA Tour Superstore. Then I compared the Superstore prices for everybody else to what was on their own website. For the most part, they lined up. So a little bit difference here and there. Yeah, a little odd. So the caveat is, I don't know if Superstore is reflective of absolutely everybody, how set in stone that pricing is. I can't tell you that a fitter would charge more or less or any of that, but the idea was just to get a baseline and understand, is everybody charging the same thing, or is it all over the map? And what I found was Ping was, and I looked at 2 lines that were, because it's hard to find a 100% overlap in upgrades. So I looked at lines that everybody had.
Not every company offers the same shafts as upgrade items. So the menus are always a little bit different depending on the company. Yeah. But
McDonald's isn't Burger King.
But they both have hamburgers.
Yeah.
So what are the hamburgers?
I look at the Fujikura Ventus line and Graphite Design Tour AD line. Okay. And based on those 2 shafts, I came up with Ping being the worst, because they charge $355 upcharge for each.
Okay, $355 upcharge. So that's, and when we say upcharge, we mean that's on top of what you're already
paying. If you pay $600 for your driver, add $350 to that.
Okay, got it.
So Ping was the worst. Titleist, Callaway, TaylorMade, all functionally the same. Titleist a little bit cheaper, like $5 cheaper on Ventus, and because they do have a selection of premium featured shafts in their lineup, a few of the graphite design offerings were $200, but the going rate is $225 or $250
on the graphite design piece.
Yeah, and then the exception in all of this, Cobra, believe it or not,
best bang for the buck. Right?
Yeah, $250 for a Ventus upgrade, $250 for a graphite design upgrade. And the thing that absolutely confounds me is that retail price for a Ventus is $350. So
so $350 is your. I can buy that from any retailer online. It's like, when you look at an Apple iPhone or something, and it's $1,000. It's that same price, whether it's Best Buy or Verizon or T-Mobile.
Well, to be clear, so Fujikura is interesting with what their pricing model. They do MSRP. So our suggested retail price is $350. But you bought it from us. You've already paid Fujikura, so feel free to sell it whatever you want. So you can conceivably find a Ventus for less than that if the dealer wants to sell it for less.
Or in Ping's case,
I like that it was like you're charging full retail from this upgrade. So basically, I'm buying a driver. I'm giving you the stock shaft back because I don't want it. It doesn't fit me. I don't like it. Whatever reason happens to be, I'm giving you that back. And you are giving me $0 for that. You are telling me that your stock shaft has no value. It is worthless in terms of my ability to use it as a
trade-in value
to get what I want. It has no value. And as I kind of thought this through, I came to the conclusion, like, my God, if you want an upgraded shaft, if you need an upgraded shaft, if you're fit into an upgraded shaft, whatever it is, you are better off ordering that shaft separately and pulling the stock shaft off and unloading it on eBay, using it as an alignment tool, whatever it happens to be. Because by and large, Cobra being the exception, the golf companies are giving you nothing. They've assigned no value to their own stock shafts. And that, again, boggles my mind. That's how it is. So next time you're thinking about an upgrade, be aware of that and consider paying for the standard shaft, getting the stock afterwards, because at least you can offload the other one on eBay for $50 or so, probably.
Tony, do you have your running shoes on?
Oh, is it time? We're doing speed golf?
Speed golf! Here we go.
Speed golf. All right.
I need quick answers, Tony. Here we go. This week, Paul Goidos, PGA Tour Champions player, spoke out saying, hey, I'm playing at a competitive disadvantage because I don't take a golf cart on our rounds, but the PGA Tour Champions allows players to take carts. I'm not talking about people that have submitted an ADA request, right, which is different, but just in general, blanket, yes or no, should PGA Tour Champions players be able to take a cart during a competitive round?
Yes.
Why?
I mean, at some point, you get old, and that is the fundamental qualifying criteria for this tour, and it does become harder to walk. And I feel like, look, if that is the challenge, you should still be able to compete at the senior level. Call it the senior discount for.
I'm gonna say no. Hell no. No. It's competitive golf. If you're playing for money, it's an integral component to playing a competitive round of golf. We don't need people out there. I mean, because then what's next? What's the next senior discount? We're going to make the cups bigger. What are we going to do to make this thing easier so people can play longer? I'm saying no.
We're not going to roll back their ball. How about that?
What? Maybe that. Over 50% of winners on sanctioned tours throughout the world last year, Tony, used this product.
Was it a water bottle?
It was not a water bottle. What's your guess? Over 50% throughout the world.
Oh, there's probably several things. I would go with either a Golf Pride grip, a Pro V1 golf ball, or both.
Those things are likely true as well, but here's the real answer. Aim Point. Green reading Aim Point winners have used, there you go, get it, which leads us to the third question. Tim Tucker, former caddy for one Bryson DeChambeau. Now,
that checks out, doesn't it?
Right, it does. Yeah, exactly. He's back doing many things again, caddying. But this is about his true aim ball marker, which is milled. very fancy. Costs roughly $100. I think it's actually milled by Bettinardi.
It is.
Costs $100. And it's called the True Aim Ball Marker, which basically on it has lines that approximate what aim point teaches people to do, which is how to read slope with your feet in degrees, 1, 2, 3, 4 degrees of break, right to left, left to right. Are you going to pay $100 for a ball marker to help you do aim point?
Probably not. It seems like a lot. It seems like maybe that's not $100 item.
Mm-hmm.
I think the margin on that is probably very
$97.
High. I think it's premium shaft margin territory. Yep. But I like the idea in one sense. Like, okay, help me align the putt, and and obviously you've got to be good at aligning. You've got to be able to sort of not only see the right line, but line up your ball correctly and then hit it. And that's true of any putt. But man, this feels like a pace of play problem ready to happen.
Well, we don't have a pace of play problem, so that's all good. Here's the thing: $100, it's way too much for a ball marker. I get it. What I'd like to see, if you really see the value in this, if you're Tim Tucker and you're saying, "Hey, I really see the value. I think it's learning. I think it's helpful. I think I want people to use my approach on this, or whatever the case is," keep the $100 Bettinardi milled one. But can you make a non-milled one for $10, $15? Can you make a plastic one? If you really think this is going to help golfers play better golf, then give us a couple different price points. Don't restrict us to the $100.
How many ball markers have you lost in your life?
More than one.
How many $100 ball markers have you lost?
0.
How would you feel if you lost a $100 ball marker?
Right. Like an idiot. Last question, Tony.
Okay.
Best of. This one where you get to pick a category, anything historically we've tested you love or not. Any category, I don't care what it is. What is your absolute top of the mountain? There's one person on Mount Rushmore, not 4. Your category best. What is it?
For a given year, yeah. I think most wanted driver, Ping G400 LST. That to me was... Yeah, kind of It
was a special year.
Yeah,
it was a special year.
That's the one that always springs to mind, is that driver where it's just like, yeah.
Historically significant, borderline iconic, line of demarcation for Ping as well. Very, very cool stuff. That's a lot of info, Tony. We're throwing a lot at people this week. Hopefully you have some questions, thoughts, ideas, hopes, dreams, anything like that. GolfSpy T, GolfSpy C. Post the information below. And let us know what you think. We'll do our best to answer our questions. If you want to go a little deeper on the topic, stick around. We'll be right back. Until then, we out. All right, Tony, we're back.
We're back.
Somebody stuck around. I'm sure they did. I want to dive a little deeper into a question. Get on your scuba gear. We're going deep. Question we got last week. Basically talking about, I play 6, 7, 8 different golf balls. I find one in the woods, whatever I pick up out of my bag, blah, blah. And they're fine. I play them. I'm serious about golf. I care about my score, but they're fine. I don't get why you guys are making such a big deal about these minute differences in, compression ranges and deltas and, statistically significant findings and standard deviations and blah, 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 blah. The balls I use are fine. I can't tell that big of a difference. What's all the fuss about? And I think a lot of people are of that mindset. So I want to dive into that topic a little bit, explore maybe why people think that way, because I know I certainly do with certain things, but why that line of thinking is also rife with inaccuracies, and maybe how we can help get you from that position to a different position.
I think if we're summarizing the mindset.
Yep. Let's start there.
We're coming. I think it all starts with this idea of, I'm not good enough to tell the difference, and therefore it doesn't matter. because I'm not good enough, the difference doesn't matter. Or if I'm not good enough to tell the difference, it means functionally there is no difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you get, well, I tried 5 golf balls and they're all the same.
Yeah. They work for me.
Yes, you tried them, but no, they're not all the same. And it's like, does it matter that they're not all round? Well, yeah, because some of those won't fly as straight. Some of them won't roll as straight. But you have to sort of tackle the idea that just because I'm not good enough, or I don't perceive a difference. Let's take skill out of it. For whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
I do not perceive a difference. Therefore, there is no difference. That's flawed. Like, there are lots of things in which I may not be able to perceive the difference. Talk about home stereo, right? Like
That's
back
a
in
good
the day,
one.
you ever price out, like back before everything was just you could plug it into your Sonos. You had to go out and find a home theater receiver, and there was like a $300 Sony,
right?
And
you have
$1,500 Onkyo at the time, whatever it was, and I'm like, well, I can't hear a difference. It doesn't mean there isn't a difference, and there may be some things I miss. Here, it's a little bit different. It's the same mindset, but it's different because at the end of watching a movie, I don't get a score. My receiver did not impact my score. Whereas a golf ball, whether or not you perceive the difference, it's still real. And I think a lot of people, when they see us talk about off-center cores or layer concentricity issues or dimple irregularities, that they expect, like, well, if it doesn't go 30 yards offline, then there's no difference. And sure, when we saw the absolute worst of our core problems, I mean, I describe it as a duck hook into the desert with a perfectly struck shot by a robot. That is the extreme. Most of the time, and this is, we're looking at ways to test this.
Right?
Yeah, we're looking at ways to test this, but I've seen data from Callaway. We got some data from Wilson that had to do with aerodynamic impacts of paint back when the raw balls launched. So this data is starting to trickle in, and in extreme cases it can be 60 yards, but those are very rare. Yeah, in normal cases, these little defects on a putt. I mean, how much does it take at 10 feet for you to miss a putt? Your margin of error there is pretty slim. And so if that ball causes, if it goes an inch offline, you may have missed that putt.
Right.
If a concentricity defect, whatever it is, whether it's a core, whether it's a mantle layer, causes a shot to fly 15 yards offline, you're probably not going to notice that. But you're not going to be aware of it.
Right.
Because you are probably, very few of us are actually good enough to go, you know what, that ball should have landed exactly here instead of whether it's 15 yards or 15 feet to the left. Yeah. We don't know that. And the tricky thing here is a golf shot is a point in time. It is absolutely positively impossible to recreate that. I can't take a swing.
There's so many variables, right?
With a bad ball and then go, all right, well, that's what happened with the bad ball. Let me recreate it perfectly with a known good ball and see what happens. You can't do that on the golf course. You can't do it precisely with a robot even. You can get close, but you can't do it precisely. So at some point, you just have to accept that these differences are real. These defects do exist. We know they exist. We've measured them. We can see the variation in the samples. And those differences will manifest themselves in feet and yards. They can be the difference between your ball being in the fairway and in the rough, on the edge of the tree line, or OB. It's the difference between a putt that goes in and one that lips out. Hitting a green, missing a green, having an easy one putt or a challenging two putt. All of these things come into play because of the ball. And whether or not you perceive them in the moment, if you can say on that swing it was absolutely the ball, it doesn't matter that you can't see that. Right. It still happens. It's still a real thing.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. We talk all the time how sometimes golfers are the smartest dumb people or the dumbest smart people, where there's so many things like that, like kind of what we're talking about, that in everyday life, you're okay with the differences, right? Even if you can't see them or you trust them, because at some point in time, they become real to you. Like when I'm driving my vehicle, I don't know for a fact what the gas mileage is. I mean, you can hit the button, it can kind of show you in real time maybe, but I'm not perceiving that relative to a different car and going, I can't feel how much gas is actually going through my car right now. Therefore, it's not using as much as maybe I think it is. Because at some point in time, I go to the pump and I've got to fill it up, and it's like, okay, well, there it was. I ran out of gas. I need to be able to fill up the tank again. But with a golf ball, I just I would tell people, okay, think about it this way. Other side, like the manufacturers absolutely know that it's important, and they know those things exist. And when we see and visit and talk to them, they are all fully aware of everything that we're testing, looking at, and talking about. And this isn't just Callaway or Titleist or Strixon or TaylorMade. When we were just out there and seeing all the things that they've invested in on the ball development side, these companies are spending tens of millions of dollars to fine tune exactly the things that we're talking about exist. So why would these companies spend tens of millions of dollars to fix a problem that isn't there, or to minimize a problem that it doesn't
it doesn't matter. Let's spend 80 million plus on it.
Yeah, what company is going to do that?
Business decisions, right? We talked about these.
Yeah.
So if somebody's
especially for something you can't see. I mean, the money, use Callaway as an example, right? I mean, well over $50 million invested in updating these things, and
probably we're 3 times that by now.
And we're starting to see, I think, the fruits of those investments in Ball Lab and things, more consistency for sure. But that's not at all something that any golfer is going to see on the shelf.
It's super interesting to me too, where it gets discounted on the ball, and we say, well, what can go wrong if a ball isn't what it's supposed to be? Well, it can be faster or slower. Mm-hmm. It can go more left. It can go more right. It can just be different than the last golf ball you hit in some way. Mm-hmm. And people are like, well, I don't notice that, so it doesn't matter. But if I told you that every time you lost a golf ball, if it went out of bounds in a pond, whatever, it would magically reappear in your bag and you could play it again. But as a consequence, the loft on your irons would change. It gets bent a degree or two weaker, or maybe every now and again it's a degree flatter or 2 degrees upright in an extreme case, right? All these things that change. So if basically 3 times around, let's say 2 to 3 times around, you have to change a golf ball for whatever reason. If 2 or 3 times around your irons were all different spec, the specs completely changed, you'd be like, well, that's ridiculous.
Would you take it? It?
That matters, right? That obviously matters. Nobody would go, well, that who cares if the loft changes periodically? All those things have an impact on the flight of the golf ball. It's very similar with the golf ball. If you've got a concentricity defect, that's a spin axis tilt. That's typically how that manifests itself. So you could think about it as bending an iron upright. If there's something wrong with the aerodynamics, it could launch higher or lower. It can, if it's a compression issue, faster, slower. Think about it as tweaking your loft. All of these things, there are functional equivalents with other pieces of equipment in the bag. And if I said, yeah, every time you lose a golf ball, I can go find that. I'm going to get you the exact same golf ball back, but I might change the loft on your irons or the lie angles, or I might not. You don't know.
Or I might not. Secret. You don't know.
And that's where you get into like that. That's what playing with an inconsistent golf ball really is. And again, none of these are perfect, but if you're going to bend my irons every time I lose a golf ball, I'd like you to just maybe bend them imperceptibly, 1/10 of a degree, whatever it happens.
Well, and what's so funny is people, by and large, I would imagine this would be true. I don't know that it is, but I would imagine if you gave people, let's just say, 10 different wedges to look down at, and they were from 50 degrees in 1 degree increments through 60 degrees, and said, hey, I'll give you $100,000 if you can line these up correctly from 50 to 60 degrees, 50, 51, I'm not going to be able to do it. Not going to be able to do it. But if you say, hey, yeah, I'm going to take that 54 degree wedge and halfway during your downswing, it becomes a 50 degree wedge. You okay with that? I mean, if you can't see the difference in a couple degrees, then what does it matter? Doesn't matter.
It all comes down to kind of how I've settled on phrasing this. And I get this is difficult to explain, and people may just be going, who cares? I still don't care. That's ridiculous. But what I say is, look, even if you're not good enough to notice the difference, and I think by and large, most of us aren't good enough to know, hey, if something must have been wrong with that golf ball because it should have landed 2 feet right of the pin, not 5 yards left of it. At that level, most of us don't have that type of precise understanding of how we impacted the ball and where it's going to go. I mean, that's Tiger Woods maybe level stuff,
right?
Maybe. But the point is, even if you are not good enough, if for whatever reason you are unable to perceive the difference, you're certainly in a position to take advantage of those differences and either suffer or benefit from the quality of a golf ball.
Well, and here's the thing. At the end of the day, it matters and it doesn't matter. And the reason I say it doesn't matter is it's going to impact you either way, whether you believe it matters or not. Like, you may not be able to see all the pollen or dust or things in your house and say, I don't change my filters because I can't see it. Well, at some point in time, it's going to matter. So you can not believe that these differences exist, or, a 15-point delta on compression. Who cares? Really? Does it really? You can say that does not matter, and you can totally believe that. But at the end of the day, at some point in time, you are going to experience what that means, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. And that's kind of the interesting. It's like, well, and that's where I do look at players on tour for certain things, or you look at premium golf equipment and why some people are so regimented about how they do certain things because they want to control every last variable that they possibly can and have as tight of spec tolerances. They weight sort grips, right, and use the exact amount of tape, and the shafts are weight sorted to plus or minus half a gram or whatever the case is. The head weights are within a tenth of a gram or whatever the case is. Everything is dialed in as tightly as it possibly can be. Yeah, but I'll just play whatever ball.
Because it doesn't matter. No. Even if you can't see the difference, even if you can't perceive the difference, you can appreciate it on your scorecard. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, and it's gonna impact you whether you want to admit it exists or not. So, it is. It's an interesting deal. It's an interesting deal, Tony. There's probably other pieces of equipment and things that we could go even further down the rabbit hole on, but
what's really the unique thing about a golf ball? So if
it is,
for say I have a shaft somewhere in my bag and it's inconsistent. It's not what it's supposed to be. For whatever reason, let's say my 8-iron shaft is half a flex softer than it should be.
Right.
Whatever that is, it never changes. So even if it's not on spec with everything else, every shot is still played with that same shaft. There's no randomization to it. Like, oh, it's not stiffer this time, softer the next time. But with inconsistent golf balls, that's exactly what it is. You don't know. Like, okay, it was this on this one, and this one in an extreme case is 25 points softer. And we have seen that kind of range. So that's like, these are things that matter. Whether, as you said, whether you want to think they matter, whether you can perceive them, at the end of the day, they do impact you, whether you want to believe they do or not.
Can you imagine, teeing off club championship? You're playing Ventus Black 6X in your driver, and halfway through your backswing, it changes to like a 42-gram Basara R-Flex.
I think the way I'm driving the ball right now, I think that might be what's happening. Look into that. Who's doing that?
Would anybody be okay with that? Of course not.
I'm bewitched.
Of course not. But that really is the reason we started Ball Lab. You started Ball Lab. Right? I mean, it was this type of a conversation that led to, well, could we actually measure all these things? Could we do something like that and really see if this stuff, one, do those differences exist? Do they matter? And if so, what are they and how do we quantify it? And then how do you communicate it? And those are all those things that, we're all kind of precursors to going down this ball lab path. And yeah, there you have it.
This is what it is.
It's all good stuff. Thank you, people. Appreciate your time diving in with us. Until next time, we out.